In the interest of talking more about our cloak and dagger kind of stuff, we are going to take a trip down to Skyrim. Hello there everyone, and welcome back down here to the Gamer's Den with me, your host, Jordan, your Master of Lore and Storyteller Extraordinaire, here to bring you another quick tips for DMs. I still want to talk more about these kind of clandestine style campaigns and how you can go about maneuvering your players, but I thought I should give you a solid example, or something that can provide a solid series of examples. And so to that end, we are going to be taking a trip over to the fabled lands of Skyrim, only released about a dozen times by Bethesda. Maybe one day we'll get the Elder Scrolls 6, but for now, let's make do with the Elder Scrolls 5, and we're going to look at what Skyrim can offer us in terms of examples of what to look at, what to do for when we want to maneuver our players with all of these kinds of cloak and dagger sort of secretive plots and maneuvering players into situations where they are just not on the winning end of things, where there's going to definitely be an uphill struggle, but it's not all coming at the end of a blade or from an explosive spell. No, many of these situations are going to be created by pen and paper, writs, deeds, orders, executive actions. These are the things by which we are going to craft incredible stories and make our players' lives miserable in the fun sort of way. But before we get into all of that, if you're new here to the channel, then go on down there, hit the subscribe button, and become a regular member here at the Gamer's Den. Or if you've already gone on ahead and listed yourself on such an incredible roster of legendary heroes, then go on down to hit the like button and share the video far and wide. So, let's talk about Skyrim now. So what's the central conflict there? Right, Alduin raising all of the dragons, bringing them back from the dead. He's about to devour the world. But that's not actually the conflict we're really worried about. Sure, it's going to be the biggest, most immediate threat to the campaign setting, but it's not really the one we want to take a look at. No, we want to take a look at the Stormcloak Rebellion. Ulfrik's Stormcloak slew the High King, shouted him to death as he came to pieces, and then fled the city and raised up the Nords of Skyrim in rebellion against the Empire for their cowardly act of signing the White Gold Concordant and outlawing Talos worship at the hands of the Aldmeri Dominion. It sounds pretty cut and dry there, right? Well, yeah, surface level, I mean, that's basically the gist of it, and that's really all you need for this civil war in Skyrim to happen, for General Tullius leading the Imperial forces, bringing up the Imperial legions to fight the Stormcloaks. Yeah, that's really all you need right there. That's all that you have to dig into. But if you're wanting to dig a little bit deeper, let your players see the different machinations going on behind the scenes that are actually moving the pieces across the board, there's a whole wealth of information to get into there. And if any of you are veteran players of Skyrim who have dug deep into the lore, listened to, gosh, there's going to be tons of channels out there that have done this. Like, I remember first hearing about this on Epic Nate's channel, which definitely look him up. Lots of great Fallout and Elder Scrolls content, but I'm sure there's going to be plenty more channels out there that delve into this. But it's a much more complicated situation than it seems, and a lot of it has its roots back in the fourth Elder Scrolls games, Oblivion. And while the Oblivion Crisis does have direct impact on what's happening in Skyrim and the Stormcloak Rebellion, we're going to have to touch on it later. For now, we're going to focus on what's happening in Skyrim. So, Stormcloak Rebellion starts. It starts off with Ulfrik Stormcloak challenging High King Torygg to single combat, to contest his right to rule, to demonstrate that he is a weak High King. Because if Torygg backs out, well, now Ulfrik has the rights to call a moot and demonstrate that the High King is a weakling. He's not following Nord customs. He backed away from a rightful challenge. But if he does accept the challenge, well, Torygg, he's young. Ulfrik Stormcloak is a seasoned warrior, a seasoned leader, and he is practiced in the Thu'um, the dragon voice. He's able to use his shouts and he does does this and kills High King Torig, and it creates a succession crisis. It creates a situation where there's no clear lines of leadership, and it's also a situation where Torig is very closely allied with the Imperials, and the Imperials want to keep it that way because it was only with the help of Skyrim that they were able to drive out the Dominion. The Dominion and the Thalmor had moved against the Empire in the wake of the Oblivion Crisis, because imagine the damage that was done. Kvatch is destroyed, the Emperor is gone, his sons are gone, even his illegitimate child is gone. Sure, it kept Mehrunes Dagon from invading Tamriel and absorbing the world and making it part of his plane of oblivion, but they're all gone. So it's a leadership crisis. There's a severe amount of economic impact, manpower, material. That's all worn down by this fighting. So the Thalmor open up by basically demanding that the Empire surrenders, and when they opt not to, well, they pull back the covering on a cart and hundreds of heads spill out. They're all members of the Blades. They're all Imperial agents who had been scattered in the realms of the Dominion and in the outskirting territories. It's part of the information network that's been wiped out, and that was their opening gambit, was blinding the Imperials to what's happening inside Dominion territory, inside the Altmer territory. So, Ulfrik Stormcloak starts off the rebellion and he begins to flee, but he's still able to raise up some of the other cities, several Nords in rebellion here. So, other than the fact that this is a rebellion and a civil war, what's the larger impact of all of this here? Well, Skyrim's in civil war now, so there are now Imperial loyalist forces and rebellious forces that are fighting against each other. They're going to grind each other down and weaken each other even further. So the Empire moves in quick to try to end the rebellion. General Tullius moves in and tries to end this as quickly as possible, because only a swift, decisive end is going to mitigate the harm done. There's already harm. The Empire's already weaker for this. Skyrim is already going to be weaker for this with these divided loyalties. They're now going to need to find new leaders to replace those Thanes and Lords who rose up in opposition to the Empire and to the High King. They're going to need to maintain perhaps larger garrisons in order to keep the local populace a bit more in line and under control, and keep everything within the realms and boundaries of the Empire so that they can be prepared to fight the Thalmor. But again, all of that is going to take time. So that's already a pretty advantageous for the Thalmor. Gosh, it's almost like the Stormcloaks are doing their job for them. Well, turns out, when you break into the Thalmor embassy, you can find a note that lists Ulfrik Stormcloak as an asset to the Thalmor. Now, Ulfrik doesn't like the elves. He hates them. He hates the Thalmor. He hates the Dominion passionately. Why would he be an asset for them? Well, he's causing damage to the Empire. That's all he needs to do. He doesn't have to be friendly with them. He just has to be fighting the Empire. And by fighting the Empire, he weakens them because he's a seasoned, capable, veteran leader and warrior. And by Skyrim's customs, he challenged the High King in single combat and killed him fairly. So by Nord customs, he's got the rights to be the High King. He should be the High King as far as several of them are concerned. But, it makes this whole thing messy, these divided loyalties, because several of the other lords, rulers, and thanes, and people of Skyrim, the Nords, they look at this as, we're not fair weather friends. We swore oaths to be part of the Empire. Talos, this is the Empire of Talos. We should be a part of his empire still. We are the backbone of it. But therein lies another sticking point. Part of the White Gold Concordant, the treaty, the armistice signed between the Dominion and the Empire, was the outlawing of Talos worship, because this touches back onto a lot of Dominion culture. Talos was a human who ascended to divinity. The elves don't see the divines as gods. They are ancestor spirits. They are spirits on that higher plane, and that's where the elves used to live before Mundus, before creation came into existence. And now a human has ascended and achieved divinity. He has ascended above them. Wow, that's gotta be insulting for a lot of elf supremacists. That's gotta be horribly insulting. So of course they're going to outlaw it, and by outlawing it, they have now done multiple things. They've achieved multiple effects with this. With Talos worship outlawed, they have now pissed off all of the Nords. They have given Ulfrik Stormcloak another sticking point to use to rally the Nords in Skyrim against the Empire to try to reinstate Talos worship, because this was a cowardly act. This is the Empire of Talos. Why have we allowed the Dominion to outlaw Talos worship? This is a bunch of crap. So, it's another sticking point. But there's still more layers yet to it. The Blades are elite guards of the Emperor. They are the best of the best soldiers in Tamriel. They are some of the greatest warriors you could ever find, and several of them also join the Order of Talos as priests when they retire, when they feel the calling, and they act as agents. So these are some of the most loyal, most hardcore, most badass, most dedicated people serving as priests. The Thalmor, the Dominion, they can't tell the difference between just an ordinary dude who felt the calling to become a priest and a former member or current member of the Blades serving as a priest of Talos. So by outlawing Talos worship, they have done a significant part of dismantling the Empire's spy network. It's not all of it, it's not the only arm of it, but it certainly is a significant chunk, and now they have free reign to go and arrest or order the Empire to arrest anybody engaged in Talos worship, Blade or otherwise. So that's another huge blow right there, and that's another bit of subterfuge and subtlety and a bit of outside the box thinking that you can apply to your games. That specific thing right there. Say a member of the party for whatever game you're running is a paladin or a cleric or both, or maybe they're just people who worship a particular deity. If they wear their holy symbols proudly, which paladins and clerics are likely want to do, they are going to immediately be targets if that particular deity's worship has been outlawed. They are going to be marked out pretty significantly, pretty starkly, to the point that maybe several people are going to be nervous about associating with them, because if they associate and don't report them, well, they could be subject to fine, penalties, or arrest as well, or have to deal with an inquisitor coming by. So that's another angle for you to attack your players, and also cut them off from resources that they might have otherwise taken for granted, whether it's a night at an inn, being able to purchase things from a shopkeep, being able to go to a blacksmith or purchase reagents or potions, whatever the case may be. If the outlaw of that player's deity has been made mandate and manifest, then, well, the player is going to have to make a choice, a very hard choice. Do they so easily cower away from their oaths? Do they so readily hide their god? Certainly, some deities might be okay with it. Gods of trickery certainly aren't going to mind that, but more lawfully minded deities might take issue with that, to the point that the player, the character, could conceivably be penalized in some fashion. Lower spell save DCs, fewer spells per day, perhaps even cut off until they commit themselves to an act of obeisance to try to make up for their transgressions against their deity. It all depends on how you want to play it, how severe the violation might be, and how hard you want to go with this, unless there can be a way that it's sold that the player's able to come up with through clever actions, clever roleplay of, hey, you know, I'm going to hide my symbol for now, not out of shame, but because of concern for other people. A lawful good deity might look at that and go, okay, them's the breaks. You know what? Being thoughtful of others, I'm not going to punish you for that. But it's going to depend. It's going to depend on how well you can sell that, and if they can theologically resolve that as well through roleplay. And this is another instance right here where we have this situation created where the players are going to have to think through more than just combat. They can still engage in the combat, certainly. I mean, that's going to be all kinds of fun on its own, but it presents your players with an interesting challenge. And same thing where a particular deity's worship is fundamentally tied with a particular kingdom or culture's power structure, their spy networks and the like. And these are powerful people, especially in games where they have access to magic, and deities are not just a matter of faith and supposition, but are a hard fact of reality. That's another thing here, is that for the Elder Scrolls and for D&D and Pathfinder, whatever game you might be running, most of these games, deities are not a matter of debate. They are a hard fact set in this universe. So that's going to weigh pretty heavily for a lot of people. You know, how much am I willing to give up at risk of falling out of grace with my chosen god? Will my deity of choice understand the choices that I'm making? And all of this from just a little bit of ink signed on a scroll that people have deemed has power behind it. You can do a lot with this, and it just keeps going as well too, because let's go back to the fact that the Thalmor view the Stormcloaks as an asset. They can actively do a lot to help them through whatever intermediaries they want to make use of, through whatever dead drops. They can drop them information. They can get supplies to them. Not enough to where they can turn the tide of the fight, but enough to where they can keep the Stormcloaks a threat to the Empire, to something that they can't easily quash. I mean, sieges alone are nightmarish for trying to maintain. They take so much time. They take so many people. I mean, you can make a siege go faster. You can assault a castle pretty hard if you want to, but the sooner you assault it when it's still at near its peak strength, the more people you're going to lose in the process of all of that. And that's something the Empire can't afford, not after fighting with the forces of Oblivion and then the Dominion as well. They're in a weakened state, so they need to keep everything together. So they can't just be rash, but they need to move quickly. Which brings me to another point, the start of Skyrim, where they've got Ulfrik Stormcloak captured. They're supposed to be bringing him all the way back to Cyrodiil, to the capital, to face trial and execution. General Tullius orders the executions to happen immediately at Helgen. Why would he do that? That's defying his orders. It's because, I would guess, because there's some cut dialogue content where General Tullius, in his dying breath, if you side with the Stormcloaks, mentions that this is a win for the Dominion. So he's very much aware that the Dominion benefits from this fighting. So the longer Ulfrik is alive, the longer he's a threat, the longer the Dominion has, the Thalmor have, to help get him freed. So, ordering his immediate execution makes a lot of sense when you reframe it from that perspective. So why does he order you and the horse thief to be killed too? Well, he can't be sure you're not Thalmor agents, or at least go-betweens, unwitting stooges even, or arms dealers that are selling to the Stormcloaks. And the other guy was a horse thief. Maybe he's working with other horse thieves and they've wrangled up a bunch of horses. They need to cut off every single avenue the Stormcloaks have. And it sucks. The player character and that horse thief, they're not affiliated with the Stormcloaks in any way. But Tullius and the Empire can't really take that chance. So he orders the immediate execution of Ulfrik Stormcloak to try to end the rebellion faster. Or if he can't end it, at least leave it leaderless without its figurehead. He might turn him into a martyr, but it's still going to take them time to find a new person to rally around, especially with these different lords and thanes that rose up to support him. Which one of them is going to be so self-righteous and pompous enough to think that they need to lead? No, I need to lead, and start infighting amongst themselves. So that odds are this is only going to create advantages for General Tullius. At the very worst, well, the fighting continues like he was going to have to do anyways, regardless. So might as well try to execute him and end it faster. So yeah, and there's a lot more tying into all of this. I mean, there's so much to go through. I mean, there's a lot of layers in the Stormcloak Rebellion if you want to dig into it. Certainly take some time to look it up. There's lots of great ideas with all of that. I mean, just my own playing around with Skyrim again and digging into all of this. Like, you can see lots of little things, especially after studying history and not foreign affairs, foreign policy kind of stuff. It's all kind of really ties together in ways where it makes more sense if you can kind of just reframe what you're looking at just a little bit and think about it in a bigger, wider sense. Yeah, but what do you think? Go on down to the comments below and let me know your thoughts. Did you like today's video? Did you dislike it? Are there other things that you might have picked up on and might recommend that other DMs and players make use of for their own campaigns? Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. Hit the like or dislike button, and remember, if you've made it this far, you must have enjoyed something, so why not go down there, hit the subscribe button, and become a regular member here at the Gamers Den. But with all that said, I've been your host, Jordan, your Master of Lore and Storyteller Extraordinaire. Thank you all so very much for your time. Good gaming to you all, and you all have yourselves a good night.